Hi, Alan Stratton from Aswood Turns. In recent videos I've been doing a series of vases. In each case I didn't want to hollow the vase through the tiny little hole, but instead I chose to do the hollowing through a much bigger hole. And I've been exploring different ways of doing that. In this case the joint was here in the middle. And it worked, made a nice little vase, but to me, I made the tenon just a little bit too obvious, and to me, it doesn't really work. This one, out of cedar, was quite nice. It actually doesn't have the seam anywhere in the body of it. The seam is in the very bottom and very well hidden. This is one of my favorites. However, this is another good one out of this black locust. The seam is right here in the middle, and it is disguised by two parallel little V-cuts. However, the problem that I see with this one is that there was a fair amount of wood, at least a 1/4 inch of wood lost in making the joint. And so, well, the grain match is a little bit off for my tastes. So here's the latest one out of the same, a sibling to this, it's black locust. And in this one, the joint is right here in the middle also, but in this case it's disguised by a very small little bead that blends more in to the rest of the vase and it looks more natural. And so of these techniques, I think I like these two the best. Either go through the bottom or go through a very unobtrusive, non-pronounced bit here with the bead. So let's make this black locust vase.
This wood is black locust that my brother sourced. I could not turn it right away, so I waxed it and put it in a trash bag to retard drying. This block does not contain any pith. I did manage to get back to it fairly quickly. I want to rough turn it to reduce the amount of wood, the thickness of the wood, and provide more drying area. I've mounted the wood between centers. I'm roughing it round with my bowl gouge and cutting a tenon on both ends with my favorite tenon cutter, my skew. Now that I can mount the wood in my chuck, I can move on to a rough shape. I want to leave plenty of wood to accommodate any shrinkage and for final design decisions. For this vase, I decide to leave enough wood at the base of the neck section to have a tenon in case I want to use that later for the final turning of the mouth. Then part off the two sections. I'm using a Forstner bit to drill out the bottom section. To prevent uneven drying and cracks, I'm painting the wood with Bowl Saver from Craft Supplies USA. This stuff has the consistency of PVA glue and dries mostly clear with a slight bluish tint where it was thicker. For the neck section, I mounted on that top tenon so I can drill out with a Forstner bit. I'm also cutting a tenon on that extra wood I left at the neck. I'll see if that helps later when I'm finishing it. For now, I'll flare out the mouth just a little. Then paint it with the Bowl Saver. Now to let the pieces dry. At first I put them in a paper drag to give them a microclimate. After 6 weeks I took them out of the paper bag. I weighed each piece and recorded the weight and date. Every so often I weighed them again and recorded the weight and date. Finally the weight stabilized. They are dry and I can finish turning this vase. Now I've mounted the bottom section to the original drive center point and a cone center for the tailstock. The first order of business is to true up that tenon. Then remount the base into my chuck. With my bowl gouge, I trim the outside down to round wood again. This vase did not distort very much at all. But I shift my focus to how to join the two sections together again. After cleaning the end as lightly as possible, I cut a shallow mortise inside the end. With the top section mounted with that extra tenon, I can recut the tenon at the mouth of the vase. Then flip the wood back around into a smaller chuck. My main objective is to cut a mortise in this piece also. But you say you cannot join two mortises together. What do you think you're doing? Actually, these two mortises will receive a tenon from a separate piece of scrap wood. I don't want to lose any more of the black locust and lose any more grain match. So now I've mounted a piece of scrap. This happens to be walnut. This will be entirely hidden, but I suppose I could also expose it if I wanted a contrasting bead. I don't, at least this time. I followed the standard process to fit the tenon to the mortise in the base. I decide to glue the tenon to the base section now. In retrospect, I probably should have waited for the hollowing. Now that the glue has dried, I can finish the other side of the tenon. Turning the tenon in the base provides more assurance of concentricity. Here again, I do the cut, test process to fit a tenon to the mortise on the upper section. Now I can hollow the base section with my new hollowing tool provided to members of the Southern Utah Woodturning Club. There are commercial equivalents. I feel that watching someone hollow a hollow form is quite boring. The only thing you get to see me is cleaning out the shavings. I'll cut this short, but I'll do a separate video later. Now I have the top glued onto the bottom. This is the complete vase. I want to flare out the inside of the mouth of the vase just a little, but since this is hanging out so far, I feel much more secure with my DIY steady rest. It will stabilize the vase while I'm applying lateral pressure that could pop the face out of the chuck. My spindle gouge does a great job in this tight area. I'm sanding with at least my coarse sandpaper now in case the sanding reveals any problems that I would need to address with the gouge. Then I can remove the steady rest and use a cone center at the live center for stability. It will not take much work now with my bowl gouge to smooth out the exterior. Then sand the vase from 80 grit to 400 grit. With sanding complete, I'm cutting a couple of grooves. One is at the joint, the other close by. I'm forming these then into a bead. One side of the bead is at the joint, the bead's top is at the surface of the vase. Then sand a bit more with 400 grit before applying walnut oil for the finish. I'm wet sanding just a little with the walnut oil. Then part off the vase from the base and sand the bottom with a sanding pad mounted to the lathe. After that, I can apply a little more oil and buff the vase to a nice shine. With this vase completed, I've now explored several ways to hollow tall vases with joints. Each way has its merits and demerits. I like the way the joint blends in on this vase. It does not call attention to itself. The tenon joint enabled a minimum of lost wood at the joint. This would not work if the mouth were larger and the tenon therefore visible. My other favorite is to hollow from the bottom. Somehow, I doubt hollowing from the side will be an option. Please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe on my website, tell your friends, and send me your comments and questions. Every week I make a new wood turning video. Please wear your full face shield anytime the lathe is running. Until next week's video, this is Alan Stratton from As Wood Turn.